What's going on YouTube? Today we've got the all-new 2023 Honda Accord in the Sport trim level.
And we want to know, is this the value-oriented trim level for you to buy?
Let's find out right now.
Now here at Car Confections, we like to talk about all the trim levels and break down which one is best for you to buy. But in this video, we're gonna be focusing on the Sport trim level because that is one of the most popular trim levels in any Honda product. So we wanna show you what you're gonna get with this trim level specifically. So if you wanna check out that video, we do have an Accord video that fully covers all of the trim levels. That being said, the Sport does have a really nice look on this all-new Accord. So of course you're going to have all the changes as with any all-new 23 Accord, and that's going to mean that you have a smaller grille than you had before. It's going to be finished in a nice piano black for this Sport model, and it's going to have a nice kind of squared off look. Now your lower fascia is going to have a matte black plastic. You are missing out on the silver accent from the Touring model, but what you're not missing out on are these headlights. These headlights are exactly the same as you would get on any trim level of the Accord. They're going to be full LED. You have LED reflector style low beams, LED reflector high beams, as well as an LED daytime running light and turn signal.
So in the back of the Sport, what are you going to get? Well, basically it's this new Accord design language that's more mature and more sophisticated, but we do have a little bit of a sporty flair, including exclusive elements like this blacked out spoiler.
Yeah, I have to say, this is my favorite Accord, especially here in the rear, because this blacked out lip spoiler definitely looks really nice.
I agree.
And as far as the taillights are concerned, we're gonna have those signature Accord taillights, and Drew's gonna hop inside and see if all three elements are LED. We have an LED brake light, LED reverse light, and we also have an LED amber turn signal indicator. So yes, Honda is not cheaping out even for this Sport model when it comes to the lighting. You're gonna have full LED components, which I'm very happy to see. Although I will say the LED amber turn signal is actually a little bit larger on the Touring model. That's a little bit interesting. Dropping down to the lower area, we're gonna have pretty much a signature Accord look. Nice black accents down here at the bottom. But one thing I do want to point out is the Accord Sport for this new generation does not have exposed exhaust outlets, which I do kind of miss from the previous gen. Now, what's the formula for any Honda Sport model? Well, it's going to be to make it look a little sporty on the outside and give it really nice wheels. That's going to continue for this all-new Accord. So we're going to have 19-inch contrast alloy wheels, and I have to say, guys, I think this is my favorite wheel in the lineup. I do like the Touring's contrasting alloys, but these look absolutely phenomenal, especially for a more basic trim level. Now moving up from there, you will notice that the mirror housing is going to be finished in a gloss black for the Sport, which has a nice contrasting look from the beautiful red paint. And as far as the functionality is concerned, you do have blind spot monitoring on this trim level, which I'm happy to see. You are missing out on heating though. Now at the side of the Accord Sport, you're going to notice that this is a very long midsize sedan. You're looking at an overall length of a little over 195 inches, which is up 2.8 inches over the previous generation Accord. And as far as the design is concerned, I really like the way it looks. We have a strong body line through the middle here. And for the Sport model, we're actually going to have chrome up here at the top and black plastic on the lower window surrounds, which is interesting because if you go for the Sport L, it'll actually be fully blacked out. But one of the things I really want to talk about with this Sport Accord is the fact that you're getting all of the safety systems as standard. So yes, that means you have your 4 major safety systems that are active standard on this model, including a traffic jam assistant. But guys, that wraps up the stylish Accord Sport on the outside. Now let's go ahead and check out the interior and see what you're getting in there.
All right, so let's go ahead and get inside here. First off, let's take a look at the key. This is the typical Honda key. It's been kind of downsized recently, kind of pebble-like as well. And one of the things I'm really happy about is that smart entry and remote start standard on every single version, even the base LX trim level. Now to hop inside, of course, just reach behind the handle. That's going to unlock the door. And welcome into the next generation of the interior. Let's start off by talking about interior material and color choices. So your LX through the Sport trim level will come with cloth seating. As you can see, that is what we have on this Sport trim level. It's a nice material. It's got kind of some stitching details in here. Feels overall nice and durable with the stitching details on the side and the bolsters as well. And then if you choose on the upper end trim levels, that will get you real leather, including the Sport L, which is basically the primary thing that model is going to be adding. Now, in terms of your color choices, most have the choice between black or gray. Just the Sport trim levels are black only. Down below, all but the base model will come with a 10-way power adjusting seat, and that's going to be 2-way lumbar support. But let's go ahead and climb inside. Now, like we said throughout this video, Sport is one of the more affordable trim levels, also one of the most popular trim levels. In the Civic, it makes up something like 40% of sales. So Sport trim is very important to this next generation Accord. So is the cabin a lot cheaper than the Touring model? I'm happy to say it is not. So let's look around at the materials. We'll start with the door trim. Over here, you'll notice we still have the leatherette that runs all through here with the stitching detail. It's also going to be covering the entire center section. The top is going to be a soft touch plastic as well, and we still have the 2 fully automatic windows. Now, as we go up to the upper dashboard, again, it's going to be finished in the same soft touch plastic as the Touring trim level. We have a leatherette that goes through here and through here with the stitching detail. Some piano black trim is going to be down here in the center section, and the only thing I'm noticing different from the Touring trim level in here really is the fact that this is not going to be padded with leather. It's going to be a hard touch plastic. It's actually going to be that way in all of the trim levels except the Touring. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and fire it up with the standard push button start. Now, right as soon as you see the Accord fire up, you're going to be greeted with a 10.25-inch digital gauge cluster. That's one of the exciting new features for this next generation. This is standard on every single version, including the Sport, including the base LX, all of them. And a lot of other Hondas made you upgrade to the fully loaded model to get this feature, so I'm happy to see this be included on all the trim levels. Now, of course, you're not going to have the HUD or anything like that on this middle trim level. And as we come back to the steering wheel, though, it is still nicely leather-wrapped, manual adjusting. But let's also take a look at interior storage as well. So if I open that up, we've got a ton of storage in here. It's going to be plenty of space for coupons, whatever else you choose to store. We've got 2 big cup holders here, which are plenty spacious for these fancy waters that Honda gave us today. And then up here in the front, you've got another really large storage bin. You will be missing the wireless phone charger unless you go for the fully loaded Touring. Now, coming back to the shifter, when I go into reverse, you're going to be greeted with your standard backup camera. It is going to have 3 different angles. There's no parking sensors on the Sport trim level, but we do still have the parking brake and brake hold function. Rising above that, we have dual zone automatic climate controls. And thankfully, just like the last generation, we've got these same really nice clicky knobs. I really love these things. They're very Audi-esque. You will notice, though, this is something that might be critical to some of you guys if you live in a cold climate. No heated seats. That's not going to be on the LX, and it's not going to be on the Sport trim level. So if you want that and you want to keep the Sport design, you're going to have to get the Sport L, which gives you heated leather seats. Of course, you got this new vent detailing up here with the piano black around it. And let's rise on up here to our volume knob. Now, you don't have the 12-speaker Bose sound system like the Touring, of course, but you do have a middle tier option, and it's going to be 8 speakers in the Sport trim level. But let's talk about the display, because this has probably caught your eye as soon as you looked into the next generation cabin, because it is quite large for this segment. It is 12.3 inches. And this is actually going to start on the Sport trim level. This is the first trim level in the lineup that's going to get that instead of a 7-inch display. So it's obviously a big, big improvement over 7 inches. Now, this version here does not have the Google software built in. You will have to choose the Touring trim level if you want the built-in, like Google Maps, stuff like that. That being said, it still has a lot of great functionality. As you can see, very responsive, nice graphics, stuff like that. Importantly to a lot of people, though, it has wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay, so you can still, pull up Google Maps like that and have that take up the whole display. Taking a look at our mirror, it's going to be manual dimming on this version. But Even though it's a more affordable vehicle, we do still have a standard size sunroof, which opens right up and has the pop-up wind buffer. All right, let's get into the back seat. Of course, this is very important for a family vehicle, and I'm happy to say that it is gigantic here in this next generation Accord. Obviously, that part's not gonna vary depending on the trim level, so you're still gonna have 40.8 inches of legroom. That is enormous for the segment. That's larger than the Camry, that's larger than the Altima, K5, Sonata, everything. So this is really, really very large. Now there are a few things inside of this sport model that are a little bit cheaper than your top trim levels. I'm noticing right here in the middle, we're not gonna have vents included. We also don't have the USB ports. You're gonna have to get at least the EXL to get that. We do still have the armrest with the cup holders inside, and if we take a look at the door trim, the other thing I notice is just that we're using hard touch plastics in the rear for the sport trim level. Going into the trunk, pop that open, still gonna be gigantic. The spec is 16.7 cubic feet, just like with the legroom. That's pretty much gonna be a class leading figure. Even though we have the hybrid powertrain, there's no loss, and it's also the same as the previous generation.
Well guys, here we are in the all-new 2023 Honda Accord Sport, and in this test drive we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, including getting our sound level reading to see how loud this Accord Sport is. But first, let's go ahead and start off with a hard acceleration. Nice.
All right, there we are. 60 miles per hour in the Accord Sport. So of course the big thing with this next generation Accord is the fact that most of the trim levels are going to be hybrid exclusive this year, and you know, pretty much most of the trim levels that you're going to want to buy, just the lower two are the gas powered exclusively. So that does mean we've got more power than the previous hybrid system because we've got the new generation, the fourth generation of Honda's two-motor hybrid system. 204 horsepower, 247 pound-feet of torque. Like I said, both of those are going to be up from the previous generation of the hybrid system.
Yeah, and I definitely will say the nearly 250 pound-feet of torque definitely pushes you back in your seat as you accelerate off. And, you know, we say this about a lot of hybrids, but you really can feel that over a gas-powered version, the initial torque that you get from the electric motors, you know, kicking off. So it feels even spunkier than I think the power figures suggest.
Right, and, you know, of course, this is no 2.0T. You know, let's go ahead and address that, right? Because a lot of people, especially on the sport trim level, you wanted to go for that Sport 2.0T. Even at one point that was offered as a 6-speed manual. You know, it was a real enthusiast choice. So no, it's not as powerful as the previous 2.0T. But with that additional torque in the hybrid system, I don't think you're going to miss it quite as bad as you might have thought you would miss it. I'll just put it that way. And you're also going to really like that additional fuel economy.
Yeah, which we will talk about in just a second. Just dusted a like 1980 Chevy Silverado.
Yeah, the hybrid system in this does not sound like a V8. That was just the truck next to us.
Not bad at all.
No, not bad, not bad. Now, I did talk a little bit about that manual transmission that used to be offered. Goes without saying, that is no longer available. Actually, that was discontinued a couple years, but even before the previous generation ended production. But what you do have on board is basically a eCVT, you could call it. It's not really a traditional CVT, but it does have performance kind of like a CVT. But the good thing that Honda has done here, compared to the previous generation, is add a nice shift simulation. So it does have more of a traditional feel when you're actually driving it out on the street. And especially when you go hard on the accelerator, you do go through those kind of simulated gear changes. Like I said, it's a little bit better on your ears than listening to a longer droning session, which is kind of what the previous generation would do. So I do think that's a nice improvement. And it is very, very responsive. It's not something you have to wait on or feel any type of lag. It's right there, giving you power immediately.
Now, if you do opt for one of those lower 2 trim levels with the base 1.5 turbo engine, that will actually have a traditional CVT trim. And as we open up out onto a highway, I do want to talk about this all-new Honda Accord's ride quality as well as just the overall comfort level. This is, of course, a mid-size sedan, so we'll talk about the driving dynamics and all that as we get out into one of these canyon roads, but I think really most people are going to be concerned about the ride quality. And I'm happy to say that it does appear to be really, really good. We've hit a few holes in the road already, and this is the sport trim level, so you'd expect this to even have maybe a more stiff ride than the touring model, and it's doing a fantastic job. Soaks up the bumps really well. The seats are really comfortable. Honestly, Drew, I have no complaints. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, this seems just about right for me. Like you were saying, I think it's critical, even though it's the sport trim level, Honda knows it's still got to be comfortable. And, it is. Just like the last generation, really strikes a good balance between that handling, which we're getting ready to show off, and the ride quality.
Yeah, but what we're also going to show off is our sound level reading. So let's get a reading going 55 miles an hour. Alrighty, so going 55 miles an hour, we are sitting at 62 decibels even. Now, as far as how that compares to its rivals, we do have those up. That actually makes this the lowest rated one on our scale in terms of that sound level reading. That being said, we are out here in California, and this is a much rougher pavement than what we normally test at back home in Kentucky. So I would say that it's definitely lower than that on a smoother road surface.
For sure, yeah. This is not, too scientific. We want to get you guys, of course, sound level readings of everything we do, but we look forward to testing this out in Kentucky on the same road surface. That way we can make sure we have a good, reliable number. But for now, that's what you're going to be looking at when you're driving on a rough road surface. I would say probably about typical.
50s,
I can't imagine that, it would be much of a different result if we were talking about a Camry or whatnot. Nice brake check there, good and strong. We should, talk about today's Slam Dunk and Airball. Since I'm talking about that already, that just reminded me. The Sport really packs in a lot of value. That is today's Slam Dunk. But like I said, this is not the highest end trim level, but we have a lot of the same features from the highest end touring trim level. We've got that hybrid system, which we really like. We've got the big display, which is a huge improvement over the previous generation.
Digital gauges.
You still have the sunroof. This feels very well equipped. And you're coming in at a much lower price point than a top end version of the Accord.
And I think I speak for a lot of you guys here with the Airball. I think it's going to be that there's no longer a 2.0T model offered. The Accord was one of those rare things in the segment that had that really sporty version with good driving dynamics, and I am kind of sad to see that go for this all-new generation. I'd like for Honda to at least offer it on the higher-end trim levels.
Exactly. Most people, the mainstream buyer, probably won't miss it, but of course people here on this channel, more car enthusiast oriented people, you will miss having that extra power and having that enthusiast version.
But I will say this hybrid, incredibly smooth like transition between gas power, electric power. One of the things that I'm noticing here is just that the engine is super quiet, so you can't really even tell when it comes on and off, which is something that I don't think can be said about the Toyota Camry hybrid. You can normally hear when that engine kicks on and off, whereas this one, it's a lot quieter and more refined.
Right, you're looking at a small displacement, engine, and it does keep things really nice and quiet. And like Mason said, the transition's just buttery smooth. I really have to be taking a look at this gauge cluster and studying when it pops up that little EV, like it just did right now. I have no idea. There's no difference in the feel. So hybrid systems have really improved so much in the past 5 to 10 years, and this 4th generation Honda hybrid system is really one of the best.
Yeah. And let's talk about the big benefit of that hybrid system, of course, the fuel economy. So, you know, I was sitting here complaining about not having the 2-liter turbo option anymore, but really the reason for that is we're moving to have a lot better of a fuel economy rating for that. So you're going to be sitting at a very impressive 44 miles a gallon combined if you go for the sport trim levels or the touring trim level. So this one right here is 44 mpg. Very, very good fuel economy, and honestly, for that level of power that we've been seeing throughout this test drive, I think that's very impressive. Now, of course, if you do get the EXL model that does also have the hybrid system, that has a smaller wheels, that's going to get better fuel economy at 48 miles a gallon combined, which it is worth noting that's a little bit less than the Toyota Camry hybrid as well as the Hyundai Sonata hybrid, which get 52 mpg, but not by a lot, and I still think it's very impressive fuel economy. It's also worth noting it is front-wheel drive exclusive. I would have maybe liked for Honda to offer all-wheel drive, but as far as compared to the gas-powered versions, the LX and the EX trim level, that's going to be a 12 mpg improvement just going for the sport model, or 16 mpg improvement if you go for the EXL.
So I went ahead and clicked the Accord into sport mode now that we're out on a canyon road here in California. And, you know, historically, this has been one of my favorite things about the Accord, is that it puts driving dynamics a lot higher than some of the competition. Honda is always really good about kind of baking in those good handling characteristics, and the previous generation was very impressive in that regard. Now, behind the wheel of this new generation, I have to say I'm very happy with this as well. We're kind of going around some corners here, and I'm getting a feel of things, and I'm really liking what I'm feeling. We have great balance, very good body control, almost no body roll. As far as the chassis, it's a little bit stiffer for the new generation. Like I said, the previous generation was always very impressive in that regard as well, so I'm not noticing like a huge difference, but we didn't need to change really anything in this regard.
I mean, the Accord has always really been one of the best in the segment.
For sure.
In terms of your driving dynamics, which is something I always appreciate Honda puts an emphasis on.
That's right, and Honda does a great job with the steering as well. As you can see, look how fast and responsive this is. We don't have any dead space. Really have a good sense of where the wheels are placed as we go around the corners here. It's not like overly heavy or anything, so it's not going to bother you in just day-to-day driving, but you do have just a great sense of control. I feel really confident. It's actually quite fun to drive, and then when you punch out of the corner, you've got that EV torque. This is really enjoyable out here on a back road, you know, and this is a family sedan that you get to live with every day, but if you want to head out on a back road, you actually have some fun, you know. It has that maybe a little bit of Type R DNA in it.
And the last thing that I do want to mention here in this drive portion is that you do have Honda's signature warranty, which is 3-year 36,000 miles for your basic warranty, 5-year 60,000 miles for your powertrain warranty. They're also throwing in complimentary maintenance, 2 years 25,000 miles for all 2023 Hondas, which is a really nice touch that matches Toyota. But you've made it through the entire video knowing that this sport trim level is one of the more affordable versions of the Accord. So how much is it actually going to cost as a whole? Well, your sport trim level is going to start at $31,895. In typical Honda fashion, you do not have very many options. So we have optional paint for $455, $1,095 destination. This one has tested $33,445, which is a very competitive price point for what you're getting with this all-new Honda Accord Sport. And I think if I were buying a Honda Accord, it would be this version. But guys, that's going to wrap up our in-depth review of this all-new 2023 Honda Accord in its sport trim level. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you want a full trim breakdown, we do have an Accord review on our channel that gives you every little detail that is different between the trim levels as well as the driving portion, so you can go ahead and check that out as well. And we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.